Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Farzy Show. My name is Mark Farzy. This little program we like to call the Farzy Show is presented by Steven Singer of the Steven Singer Studios. What happened yesterday? Gee, let me think. Phillies had a great come-from-behind victory after facing one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's fun. The Sixers, they might get Kevin Durant. That's amazing. No way. And the Eagles just bouncing back from life after the news of Jason Kelce, and they gave us some news regarding Cam Jurgens. Jordan Davis seems like a great teammate. We just got a lot of stuff going on with the Eagles, especially when they got the preseason starting tomorrow on Friday. That is. Wow. We're at Thursday already. Man, that's amazing. This week's just flying by all of a sudden. We're going to get Austin Krell of the Painted Lines, paintedlines.com, joining the show to talk all things Sixers and Kevin Durant. We're going to get Brandon Lee Gowton on the program today to talk all things Eagles. Now, Brandon was originally scheduled to come on with us yesterday. Then Brian Westbrook ended up saying, hey, I can do tomorrow if you want to. Basically, that's how it came together. We had B West, moved Brandon to today. Kevin Durant news broke. This is all the behind-the-scenes info that you obviously need in your life. And I got Austin Krell to talk some things about the Sixers. So we got a jam-packed show, almost too much show. The internet called me and said, hey, whoa, you almost have too much show for one show. And I said, well, hey, you back off, internet. This is going to be a party. And then the Phillies go and they win the game the way they won last night. And that's what we're going to start off with today. I am a big believer of all the sports cliches you could throw out there. When you talk about this one phrase, this one cliche, good teams find a way to win, bad teams find ways to lose. I am a big believer in good teams find a way to win because they're never out of it. And I'm telling you right now, almost like we talk about a great quarterback in football. Oh, you got that great quarterback, you're always going to be in it. I felt like no matter what, even when Alcantara was dominating last night, get to the bullpen and good things are going to happen to this team. Get to the later innings of this game, and good things are going to happen for this Phillies ball club. And sure enough, I'm even on a text message with my buddies last night, and we're all saying, hey, do you think they're going to win? At this point, they were down. I think it was 2-1. I said, this feels like a win. Next thing you know, Marsh goes up the middle with the RBI single, and pretty much it was all Phillies after that. Sir Anthony Dominguez comes in the latter stages of that game and closes it out. But really, I just had a good feeling throughout this game. First off, knowing that friend of the show, Garrett Stubbs, killed the Marlins, killed the bad mystique that surrounds the Phillies by the Marlins, that bad aura, the Marlins, just that stink of fish, no pun intended, that surrounds the Marlins when it comes to the Phillies, that's gone, thanks to Garrett Stubbs' walk-off home run about 2 months ago. But yesterday I'm watching this game. Castellanos gets the running grab in the first inning. Hoskins has a great sliding grab at first base. In the sixth inning, Bohm comes up with a big play at third base. Then you get the RBI from Kyle Schwarber that scores Bryson Stott from first base to make it a 2-1 ball game. Stott gets a diving grab of his own in the seventh inning, made it look so unbelievably routine. It wasn't even funny. It was an incredible defensive play. Then Marsh gets that RBI single to make it 3-2. Then Schwarber gets the RBI single to make it 3-3. Marsh, unfortunately, gets doubled up on the Hoskins humpback liner in the eighth inning, and it's 2 outs. And all of a sudden, you got 2 outs, runners at the corners. JT Realmuto steps to the plate, and I'm like, all right, just find a way to get out of this. Still felt like a win to me, by the way. At this point, it was 3-3. And JT Realmuto, that hot-hitting catcher, former Marlin himself, slaps one to left field for the game-winning RBI single, and that's when Sir Anthony Dominguez came in the ninth inning to close things out. Throughout that, it just felt like it was a matter of time before the Phillies had a rally in them. And I can't remember too many instances in recent history, the last 10 years, where I just watched this Phillies team and said, they got this. I can't remember too many instances where the Phillies were down for as long as they were in a ball game and went, no problem. They got a run in them somewhere in this game. And it felt like a win. Noah Syndergaard's start did not feel like a win. Now, all in all, it wasn't bad. 2 runs, 2 earned runs in the time that he was out there. It wasn't terrible. It was, statistically speaking, it looked a lot better than what it did in his first start where he allowed 11 hits. But last night, Syndergaard goes and allows 6 hits. remember after the 11 hits, I said, well, there were 11 hits, sure, but a lot of it were dinks, dunks, and a lot of guys off balance. And yeah, it was 11 hits, and 11 hits is 11 hits, but he had guys off balance throughout. This time, this was like, I'd rather have the 11 hit game than the 6 hit game, because even in the 6 hit game, there were a handful of baseballs that were hit on the screws. Noah Syndergaard did not look particularly great in this start last night. Struck out 4, walked 2, gave up 2 earned runs in the 6 innings. So I'll take those starts. Statistically speaking, just looking at the box score, you would think it was a pretty damn good start for Noah Syndergaard. Watching the game, dinked and dunked, some good defense behind him, and you can do the equation however you like to do it in your head. Doesn't exactly equal out to the best start you want to get. But from a guy that could be your 5th starter, a guy that could be competing for the 3rd starter spot, a good start nonetheless. Bottom line, you look at the stats and go, okay, he had a nice start for himself. But you didn't feel great about him. You felt like maybe this was one hit away from things being blown open in a couple of different occasions, and that just didn't happen. Mainly because either Syndergaard was able to get out of a jam or your defense backed him up. Castellanos in the 1st inning, Hoskins in the 2nd inning, things like that came up throughout this game. That made you feel good. But one thing I don't want to do with this victory, and I know it was going around on social media, and John Kruk certainly didn't help things after the game, but the Keith Hernandez thing, we talked about it yesterday, how just ridiculous it is. How for the last 3 series going into this year, season series going into this year, the Phillies have actually beaten the Mets in 3 straight season series over the last couple of years here, with this year being the exception to this point. And the Mets have committed more errors than the Phillies. So that to me is odd as well. And for the last 3 of the 4 seasons, the Phillies have had a better record than the Mets. So Keith Hernandez's point of saying that the Phillies are some god-awful team that aren't worth his time just has no bearing in reality, has no basis in reality, without Keith Hernandez just hating the Phillies. So we're talking about it on the internet last night. People are tweeting about it. They're tweeting Seinfeld gifs and all that stuff. I don't want to give Keith Hernandez credit. And I'm so glad that the Phillies had this turnaround 2 months ago as opposed to like just starting it now, because then we might actually have to hat tip Keith Hernandez for whatever, being the putting the quarter in the machine to make this team go, oh, Keith Hernandez thinks we're not, now we're underdogs like the 2017 Eagles. No, I'm glad that's not going to be the case. But I know people were poking their fun and having their fun with Just for Men himself, Keith Hernandez. John Kruk and Tom McCarthy during the broadcast last night were having their fun with Keith Hernandez. And I enjoy that. You want to have one game, you want to have some fun? Great. And it's going to come up again over the weekend with this Mets series coming up here. But I'm glad they were having their fun. I'm glad they were poking fun. But after the game, and I was laughing so hard, man. After the game, John Kruk was talking to the post-game crew, Ricky Metallico and Michael Barkan. And John Kruk just put it out there that Keith Hernandez was texting Tom McCarthy during the game about things that I thought at first just Kruk was saying about him. But no, it was also about what what Tom McCarthy was saying about Keith Hernandez. Because both were having their fun with Keith Hernandez throughout the broadcast. Perfect example. 6th inning. Alec Boe makes a great sliding grab at 3rd base. Upon the replay, Tom McCarthy says, and Keith, here comes the replay. And we all know who Keith is. They even had some artwork for a little production quality behind it during the broadcast last night with a little bulletin board material with Keith Hernandez basically saying the Phillies aren't worth their time. John Kruk was having some fun with it. And after the game, as I just mentioned, Kruk himself wouldn't get into details specifically about what Keith Hernandez was saying, but did offer the tidbit of information, a little nugget of information that Keith Hernandez was, I guess, none too pleased with Tom McCarthy and John Kruk having a little fun with the comments that he had. Keith Hernandez, go out there to St. Louis, man. Just have your fun out there in St. Louis for that anniversary team. You don't need to be concerned with the Phillies. And could this mean somehow that Keith Hernandez was actually watching the Phillies game? Or were people texting him saying that T-Mac and John Kruk are having some fun with you during the broadcast? Whatever it is. If I'm Keith Hernandez, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag that I'm not watching this team for unless two things. One, I just hate the Phillies. And look, he played well against the Phillies. He hit over 300 against the Phillies in his career. So he should actually love the Phillies. But look, we've had our own moments as Phillies fans that make us go, I don't want to watch this. Keith Hernandez has put it out there publicly as a member of the New York Mets broadcast. I think he's trolling us purposely. I think he's purposely trolling us. It just happens that this troll job is actually true because we're not going to see him over the weekend. Not that we would, but every once in a while they show the opposing team. Oh, there's Keith Hernandez, a fine mustache and dark hair. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. We're not going to get that opportunity to take a glance at Keith Hernandez this weekend. But I'm just so glad that this Phillies turnaround happened a lot earlier than Keith Hernandez declaration of independence from doing Phillies games. I do like the people that are like, it's your job. Show up and do your job. Was it Jim Gardner put that out there? The great Jim Gardner from the Action News? It's your job to show up and do games. You show up and do games. Two mustache men battling it out. I got to tell you, I can't remember the last time I had this much fun doing watching Phillies games. It just feels like they are going to find a way to win no matter what. And whether it's Garrett Stubbs getting you a walk-off home run, whether it's Alec Boehm getting hot, whether it's Nick Maton coming up getting hits for you, home runs nonetheless, whether it's Brandon Marsh coming over here and figuring out how to hit, you always feel like this team has a chance to win. And might I remind you, this is not just for the people on the podcast. This is for everyone, for dramatic effect. Bryce Harper will rejoin this lineup before we know it. Thank you. 7 straight for the Phillies. Unfortunately, nothing changes in the wild card. Everyone that's in the wild card standings from the Braves, the Phillies, the Padres, the Brewers, everyone's got a win streak of some kind going. You either have won 7 in a row or you've won 2 in a row. So that's where we're at right now when it comes to this Phillies ball club and the wild card standings. Phillies are still cemented. Still right now, 1 game up on the Padres who won yesterday. So that's where we're at in life, folks. That's where we're at in life. It was just so I couldn't believe it. And there was one thing, and I thought I had it loaded. I don't. So excuse me 1 second, but I'll allude to it real quick. Jimmy Rollins last night actually tweeted out after the game, and it's always good to hear from the, Mr. The team to beat, Jimmy Rollins himself. And he took to Twitter to talk about this team and the excitement. And at the same note, comment on the fans not being at the stadium. And we've talked about this. And look, I always think there's a couple of different ways you could dissect this. One, Phillies ratings, what are they right now? And also whether or not people are at the ballpark. It's always great to see people at the ballpark and see the sellouts like Jimmy Rollins had experienced in his career. All the sellouts he experienced in his career. So last night, Jimmy Rollins took to Twitter and he said, this Phillies team has it. It has taken some time, but they are here to win. Still seeing too many empty seats at the bank, though. Where are all the sellouts? They get the bank rocking and make Philadelphia the best sports town in the world. Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, hashtag everybody hits. I don't like ripping fans, and I don't like saying, hey, spend your money. Because that's essentially, there's 2 things, and I believe, and let me reference this. Remember Don McKee? He was on WIP on the weekends. And when I was in like high school and college, and I was a landscaper, I listened to Don McKee. And Don McKee said something. It would be before like the pregame show on Sunday mornings for the Eagles, right? Don McKee would be on. Don McKee said 2 things, and these sunk in my brain as like a 15 or 16-year-old kid. You never tell a man how to spend his money. You never tell a man how to spend his money. You never tell a man how to raise his kids. Those are like 2 nevers that you can live your life by if you're a guy. And really, for people in general. I don't like telling fans to go to games. I don't like begging people to go to games because I don't believe in telling people how to spend their money. I know times are tight for a lot of people. I know it's expensive. I told you guys, I just went to the game Saturday. It was the first time I paid for a ticket in a long time. Not to be a jerk, but it's the first time I did that in a while. And I was walking around the concourse, and I like bought a round of beers. It was like $100 for like 5 guys. It was in the pounders. And you tip on top of that because it's nice. And like a couple of bucks. But the food, like I think about everything now because I have a family of 4, and I was a part of a family of 4 growing up, immediate family of 4. And going to a game is expensive. And I know the weather's been dog hot outside, but I don't like to judge people for not going to games. If they're watching the games, if they're caring about the game, if I'm on Twitter and there's a buzz about the game on social media, people are buzzing about it. That's where I think you can tell right now that this team is hitting home with a lot of people. I don't think Jimmy Rollins is going out here necessarily ripping the fan base or anything, but I think he's encouraging people like, hey, this is it. This is the real deal. And I know some people might read this tweet as a huge negative. Oh, he's calling out the fans for not going to the game. I think he's acknowledging that fans aren't going to the game. I think what he's telling you is simply a very similar phrase to what he said before. I think we are the team to beat in the NL East. When Jimmy Rollins said that in 2007, that wasn't met with great praise and adulation. That was met with, who the hell does he think he is? However, I loved it. It was the first time ever I saw a Phillies player like had swagger. Real first time ever since the 93 Phillies team. Jimmy Rollins had swagger. He said they were the best before they were the best. They go to the play. They win the division that year. They go to the playoffs. And then the following year, they go to the World Series and they win the second World Series in this team's history. But I think what he's saying here with this first line, this Phillies team has it. He's saying, guys, if you haven't noticed yet, this team is a team worth the price of admission. So come on down. Give this team a little extra boost of energy, especially when they roll into September. And what do historically in September? They collapse. Mention this after Alumni Weekend. Every person that was in that booth talked about how the Phillies fans raised their game because they held them accountable. Brian Westbrook was on the show yesterday talking about how Phillies fans our Philadelphia fans hold their athletes accountable. And that's what they love, because as an athlete, you should be holding yourself as accountable. As a person, you should be holding yourself accountable. I've always said that an athlete, when you get booed in Philadelphia or you get booed anywhere, you should always take it as, I know I need to get my you-know-what together. That's it. I know. Like, that's how you should do it. That's now, granted, I've never been booed by a stadium of 40,000 people. However, that's just what my own little personal piece of advice. I know I need to get my you-know-what together. And this Phillies team, I think, has their you-know-what together already. I think everybody on this team busted down the line. Kyle Schwarber's beating out balls down the first base line. He's laying down bunts, hitting home runs, going 3 for 4 for you last night, getting huge RBIs for you. He does it all out of the leadoff spot for this Phillies team. You see guys like Al Bohm busted in. You see a guy like Nick Castellanos busted in that first inning to run down that fly ball, that line drive, fly ball hit out to the right center field to track it down. And they get the double play out of it. That's what you want to see from this ball club. And you're getting it every single night. And it's a joy to watch every single night and follow this story. I know that expectations change as the season goes on. If I would have told you in April that this team was going to be playing meaningful games in September, you would have felt good. If I told you this team was going to make the playoffs, you would have felt good. Probably would have felt great. If I told you this team was going to get not the third pity party wild card, but the second, probably feeling a little bit better. But I think this is a season that after 10 years of not watching this team in the playoffs, the perspective or the expectation won't change all that much. We'll be happy once they're in the playoffs. And then if they lose a first series, that's what we'll judge from there. But as far as just getting to the playoffs, I think no matter what happens in the playoffs, we'll look back on it and we'll go, well, damn, at least they're back there. At least they're back to that level. And this was without Bryce Harper for 3 months in the season. It's pretty damn incredible. Pretty damn incredible. Coming up in a second, we're going to get to our first guest, Austin Krell, and we're also going to get to Brandon Lee Gowton. There's a couple of things from yesterday's practice that I do want to get to, just so you're up to speed, because we talked to Brandon after day 9. Since then, Jalen Hurts has had one of his best practices, but one of the reasons I wanted to get Brandon was because he has not been as positive on Jalen Hurts as I have been positive on Jalen Hurts. He doesn't really think that Jalen Hurts is the guy that will be the quarterback even next year for this Philadelphia Eagles team. I do. Now, one thing Brandon goes to is salary cap. Even if Jalen Hurts is okay, are you going to sign him to a mega deal and then you won't have more flexibility? My only counter to that is it's Howie Roseman running things. And you never know what money's going to be moved around. So I don't put anything past Howie Roseman when it comes to the salary cap and figuring it out. And when it comes to the money, Howie Roseman is just a magician. That's what he is. So we'll get to Brandon Lee Gowton coming up in a second. But just to hit this real quick with the Eagles as well. we didn't show this. We talked about it. And I thought originally this was Jason Kelce. And I know I went back and forth with some of you guys on with some of you guys in the chat yesterday. But this was actually Cam Jurgens. This is from the Eagles open practice. If you haven't seen this yet, this is from Sunday's open practice where Jordan Davis was owning Cam Jurgens. Watch this. Just on roller skates. Pushing him back, pushing him back, pushing him back. People going nuts. The person that did the video there was going nuts as well. I cut the audio because there were some things said. But Jordan Davis was asked about that particular play. I love this answer because it's so true, and it's not all about me. It's not cocky. It's not arrogant. It's just, I think it's a great answer. Jordan Davis was asked about putting Cam Jurgens on roller skates at practice, at the open practice on Sunday. And this is the way Jordan Davis addressed that question. When he was asked, what'd you think about that video?
I hate it, honestly. I just feel like it shows it's very one-sided. You see one rep, but you don't see Cam just, blocking me and, getting me at practice and, getting me in the other reps. So, I always say, looks can be deceiving. So, one rep and it goes viral, whatever, whoop-de-whoop. But, Cam is holding his own. He's a very good player, and it's just good competition. It's iron on iron. So, you see the background of everything, but don't let the hype get to you.
There we go. Now we're having a party. Now we're back. Nice to see you. That's where we're at with Cam Jurgens. Thought it was a great answer. Now, the reason that the reason that we're talking about Cam Jurgens today is because Jason Kelce's injury. Most likely, I think, as I said yesterday, Jason Kelce will be back by week 1. The man is not a immortal human being. He is an immortal. He dominates. He'll get back. He'll heal faster. And even if he's having some discomfort, he'll still go out there and he'll do his job. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni, when he addressed the media, said a couple of things that I thought were interesting. One, the starters are going to play a series or 2. They're going to get their feet wet. They're going to dabble. I'm all for it. Get your feet wet, dabble. The other was Jason Kelce. I think he acknowledged the simple fact that if it's close, Jason Kelce is going to be starting in the regular season opener. But he was asked about it yesterday. He gave us a little bit more detail on the injury itself, the thought process of having surgery now, and whether or not Jason Kelce will be ready come week 1. Come week 1. Here's your head coach on Jason Kelce.
We were in a situation where he had some discomfort in there, and we have time to handle that, and so he can play this season. He's going to have to go through things throughout the season, other things. So something that the doctors and Jason and myself felt comfortable, that to get it cleaned out and be ready for the long haul ahead. And Jason Kelce is the toughest guy I've ever been around by far, and so. I'm glad we're able to be able to do that so, he can play with less pain.
Is week 1 realistic for him?
I don't ever put a timetable on anybody, as you guys know. We're hopeful for him. And like I said, how many 122 games in a row does he play? Yeah. If he's close, the track record says that he'll be ready to go.
I'm not betting against Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce started week 1 for the Eagles. I'm not a doctor. I have no inside information when it comes to this elbow injury and Jason Kelce. I think we all have the same inside information, which is Jason Kelce's going to play. If it's close, Nick Sirianni said it best. If it's close, you could consider him in. Eagles get things underway Friday, tomorrow. I can't wait. I just want to see a glimpse of them on the field. That's it. I just want to see a glimpse of them on the field. The starters, that is. And it turns out, from what it sounds like from our head coach, it sounds like that is exactly the way it's going to go down. Brandon Lee Gowton will be along a little bit later in the show, talk about the Eagles and where they're at right now, heading into that first game of the preseason, their preseason opener. Now the big story from yesterday. 76ers, Ian Bagley, putting it out there that the Sixers and the Boston Celtics are knocking on the door with Kevin Durant. And apparently Kevin Durant is interested in playing in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. I don't know how you say no to that. And look, I am not the world's biggest Kevin Durant fan. It's funny. I actually like the guy off the court more than I like the guy on the court. Because off the court, I believe him. He just chills. He plays basketball and he chills. And I like that about Kevin Durant. And I think that he can have fun. I like that about Kevin Durant. But like in the game itself, I just hate the idea that he ever left the Thunder to go to the team that knocked them out to try to win some championships. And yes, he was the finals MVP and all that. He was great. And he's one of the greatest scorers I've ever seen and all that stuff. But I think if push comes to shove, I think if you're presented with Tyrese Maxey for Kevin Durant, the Sixers are not saying no to that. I hate that they wouldn't say no to that. And there's no, that would guarantee him a championship. They're not far off, I think, right now. I don't think they're far off right now from winning a championship. So do I roll the dice right now, keeping Maxey with the core that I have now? Watching the Nets, by the way, at the same time, just blow themselves up. But then potentially watching Kevin Durant go to the Celtics? Oof. Celtics have been a little far ahead of you throughout this entire process. Yeah, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I don't like that I have to do the deal, but I think you have to do the deal. It's not going to be fun watching Tyrese Maxey play for the Brooklyn Nets if this deal were to come through. I wouldn't like it. It might be the deal that I knew the Sixers needed the most that I still hate the most. Like by the time you got rid of Ben Simmons, you were like, get out of here. When you had Markelle Fultz, it was like, get out of here. Even Matisse Thybulle at this point, who was like loved after the playoffs last year, not so much. It's like, all right, see ya. Tobias Harris, nobody's attached to Tobias Harris. And I like Tobias Harris a lot. I really like Tobias Harris. But nobody's like emotionally attached to him. Like people were more attached to Jimmy Butler. And yes, maybe his past his success after the trade had more to do with it than anything. But people are still more attached to Jimmy Butler than Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is still here. So if it comes to Tyrese Maxey going, or when it comes to Tyrese Maxey going, people are going to look at that and be like really pissed off and really upset. And then instantly the Sixers are going to become the team that will be the favorite to at least go to the NBA Finals. Like right now, yeah, they got a great shot at being in the NBA Finals, but they're not the favorites by any means. That's a hell of a big three. And yesterday on ESPN, just to add a little bit more to this, Bobby Marks, former Nets general manager, said that James Harden will be a top 3 MVP candidate next year. So if he's a top 3, then I don't see Joel Embiid falling out of the top 3. So will James Harden be the MVP? Will Joel Embiid be the MVP? And then who's going to be third again? Joker, maybe? But if you have Harden back in the shape, and if you've watched the workout videos in the offseason, and look, I don't need to see skill from James Harden. He's a former MVP. I don't need to see skill. I need to just see the shape that he's in and if he looks healthy. That's it. And you can tell that. You can look at that from a workout video. You can't tell skill. You should already know his skill. When you celebrate a jump shot or a step back or a 3 or whatever it is, he should do that. All I want to see from him is fitness and health. And that's what he looks like in these workout videos, which is great. I'm happy for it. And ultimately happy for the Sixers. But I thought it was pretty wild that a guy that has inside information about all this was like, James Harden, this is what Bobby Marks said, the former, not Sean Marks, but Bobby Marks said that James Harden will be a top 3 MVP candidate next year. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Joel Embiid, you're not saying no to that. Now, the Sixers package will include Tobias Harris. It'll include Tyrese Maxey. But right now, according to this report, the Sixers and also our next guest, Austin Krell from the paintedlines.com, he's talked to his own sources as well and said, yeah, this is real. It's not like about to happen. They are in exploratory talks, but this is the real deal. Let Austin Krell explain it a little further from that point on. Let me tell you right now about Steven Singer. Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut right here in Philadelphia. Your place to go for all your amazing jewelry. Big jewelry purchases and more, Steven Singer Jewelers is the place to go. The other corner of 8th and Walnut online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Do what I do when it comes to all your big jewelry purchases. Trust Steven Singer Jewelers. Without further ado, let's talk a little bit more Sixers basketball with our friend Austin Krell. To talk about all things Kevin Durant, all things Sixers, all things for trading Tyrese Maxey. Austin Krell of thepaintedlines.com. What's going on there, Austin?
Not much, Mark. I thought it would be a normal August, and I should have thought otherwise.
Yeah. What are you like on vacation somewhere? You Airbnb-ing somewhere in Europe, and this story breaks?
So I was on vacation last week in the Bahamas, but then I got COVID the last day. Yeah, that wasn't great. So that was like, they're like, "Are you sick?" at the airport, and I'm like, "No. Why do you say? What do you mean sick? I don't even know I had COVID yet, but here we are."
Oh, so you were able to come back?
Yes. No, that would be something if I'm breaking news from like a poolside somewhere with like a nice little pina colada in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Suntan lotion just on the nose, straw hat of some sort, of course. Because I know when I was over in Europe, literally they changed the rules a week later. Like if I would have tested positive with COVID in Europe, I would have had to quarantine there, whatever. And then a week later, when I came back, they're like, everybody's welcome back to the United States. Come on down. So good for you that you were able to get back, obviously, and just in time for some Kevin Durant news. Now, you did your own digging. Ian Bagley already did the story. Put it out there that the Boston Celtics and the Sixers are kicking the tires on Kevin Durant, more or less, and that Kevin Durant would be open to coming to Philadelphia, but would almost have to cost Tyrese Maxey. What have your sources told you about this deal?
So I think right now it's very much like exploratory, and the Nets sitting back and waiting for what offers arise and seeing if someone budges. They're in an extraordinarily difficult and unprecedented situation here, are the Nets, and so I think Kevin Durant, he's seen all last week partying with James Harden in London and abroad, and you naturally think like well, clearly they're still friends from from their Nets days. There isn't bad blood, and then yesterday or 2 days ago, Shams drops the story about how he issued the ultimatum to Joe Tsai and said, it's either me or it's the GM and Steve Nash, and then suddenly you have this. So I think in a lot of ways, this is like Kevin Durant trying to say like, hey, don't forget about the trade that I want. Just because I haven't made a big stink about this publicly yet does not mean that I won't do that. And that, I'm coming around on the idea. I still want out of here. So I think you're probably seeing some of him sort of, striking the bell again and trying to get, stir up some things there. But I also think like realistically, you have the fans can say what they want. They have a very, in some circles, popular head coach in Doc Rivers. You have a deal-making president of basketball operations. You have a star who is very popular around the league in James Harden. You have Joel Embiid, who is an MVP candidate. You're going to always be linked to star players when you have a core like that has the resume that they have, because star players want to play with star players, and they want to play with star players in desirable markets, which in some cases is Philadelphia. So, I do think that there is interest from Kevin Durant there. Obviously, if the Sixers could find a way to get Kevin Durant, I think anyone would say that they would want to get Kevin Durant. It's a matter of what can they give up, what do they have at their disposal, and what is the market saying? Because if they say this is our best package, and then someone else comes in, well, I'll give you 6 first-round picks, this guy and that guy, there's only so much you can do, right? Mm-hmm. So I think right now I think the interest is on Kevin Durant's side is real, but it's a matter of how long can this thing go on without serious progress being made before the Sixers have a chance to really swoop in there and say, look, Tyrese Maxey, and whomever else is the best offer you're going to get.
Sure. Do you think that's what it would take?
Yeah, I mean, first the Nets would obviously ask for Tyrese Maxey. And then you need Tobias Harris to match the money, and then there would be other assets. I would, Ian Begley mentioned Matisse Thybulle. Any remaining picks that you have left over, I think they have very limited pick supply because of the Harden deal, so they would obviously owe those. And then maybe there's some supporting cast. That's why I think it's right now a long shot that it happens. That's just my speculation, because look around the league. The Raptors, if they want to get really serious, can include Scotty Barnes, and the Celtics, if they want to get serious, can include Jaylen Brown. And then those are packages right off the bat that might entice Brooklyn more than the Sixers can with Tyrese Maxey.
Is it as easy as wherever Kevin Durant goes, just let's say it's in the Eastern Conference, it's to the Celtics, it's to the Sixers, is it, or even stays with the Nets? Whatever happens, the power of the there's my football NFCs, the power of the Eastern Conference goes wherever Kevin Durant goes. Is it as easy to say that?
Yeah, I mean, they would certainly have the most top end talent, in the maybe even in the entire league. And I think their depth wouldn't be taking it would be obviously it'd be a hit, right? But it wouldn't be like we no longer have 3 guys off our bench that were supposed to be big depth pieces for us. Like you still have PJ Tucker, you would still ostensibly have Daniel House, and you'd have Shake Milton, and you'd have Paul Reed, and you'd have other guys that you have on your bench, DeAnthony Melton. So you'd still have a pretty formidable supporting cast around your core of Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. It's hard to even say, like, because I'm so used to saying, Tyrese Maxey,
sure,
Harris, but I mean, from the sounds of the reported packages, it wouldn't include their bench, which I think would be a huge sticking point for them. And I also think, like, realistically, look at the rest of the league. I think right now we're kind of getting ready to fade back into an era where it's like, less about having 6 stars and more about having 2 stars and then a really formidable, reserve unit behind them. And so I think, if you're giving away, 4 players plus picks, is it really worth it anymore? Like, do you really have a great chance? Ask the Nets how that worked out for them, trading everything they had to get James Harden. They had nothing left when all was said and done. And that was ultimately why they lost in the playoffs. So, I do think that there are merits to it. That it's just a matter of, I think, if the Sixers are going to have a chance, it's going to be about waiting out as long as you can and, trying to see, like, okay, this team is now no longer interested or out of the running. This happens, that happens. Alternatively, if Kevin Durant comes out and says, like, I want to play with the Sixers and only the Sixers, which I'm not saying is going to happen, but if that does happen, that lowers his trade value to literally everybody else. So that's when the Sixers take a pretty big jump forward.
All right, so that would be the opportunity, because that was going to be my next question. If he lowers his trade value enough by saying, oh, you're going to keep the GM, you're going to keep Steve Nash, I ain't playing. All right, do what you will. Then, in essence, the Sixers could maybe possibly get away with just Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, and hold on to Tyrese Maxey somehow magically.
It would be an incredible turn of events if
it would. Yeah, I know. I agree. And I don't think it comes to that point, but I'm just saying if it does, then that at least opens that door. Maybe it goes from cracked to I'm at least able to get my foot through.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately then Brooklyn would turn around and say, then we're more than happy to take Jaylen Brown and a couple picks and, Derek, whatever his name is, Derek White from the Celtics instead. And then his hand is forced.
All right. Now, let's just say this. Let's say that something along the lines of the biggest points of the trade are Kevin Durant, obviously from the Nets, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and obviously Tobias Harris for the money. Let's say that deal were to go through. The Sixers, as we were just talking about a second ago, they become the favorite in the Eastern Conference, no?
Oh, yeah. I don't know anybody that's going to be able to keep up with them. Like, there's kind of a supercharged big 3. Like, you have one guy who's 34 but is arguably a top 3 player. You have another guy who is 28 and is firmly a top 3 player, and you have a guy who in his prime was also a top 3 player. So I mean, you have a pretty good I think your worst case scenario is something that you'd be pretty happy with.
How much do you think it would hurt Sixers fans then if this were to fall flat on its ass, if the trade went through, to watch Tyrese Maxey improve to the player that we all think he can become as a member of the Nets after Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant's still here, you're still paying him. Joel Embiid takes a nosedive after he hits 30, and James Harden, of course, is somewhere else by then. How much do you think that would sting?
See, fans tell me that they're like, no, he won't care. Like, we're fine with it. I'll pack Maxey's bags and I'll pay for his plane ticket right now. I promise you, 3 years from now, when this is all over with, there will be people who, when Maxey drops 20 points, are going to be like, I knew we shouldn't have done that trade. I knew it. It was a dumb trade. It was always a mistake. Even if they win all 3 championships, they would still do it because that's the way that the Philly fan is, for better or for worse. So, I think there would be constant, revisionist history, and that's one of my detractors from doing the trade. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, in the moment, nobody's going to care if they're winning games and they're winning titles.
All right. So let's go to this. I think I have high expectations for James Harden going into this season. The workout regimen in the offseason. And look, Ben Simmons hasn't really ruined the offseason workout for me. It's still good when guys get in shape when it's not the regular season. So seeing that from James Harden, hearing all the great stuff about how he's performing in the offseason and working his butt off, and he's looking lean, and him and Maxey and Sam Cassell are in the gym, and he's in the gym with Joel Embiid. Everybody, we go through the whole history lesson of the offseason. But Sean Marks apparently hot takes me, the former GM, Bobby Marks, the former GM of the Nets, and he said that James Harden could be a top 3 player when it comes to MVP race next season. Is that at all possible? Is that reaching, or do you think James Harden still has a top 3 player type of persona and ability in that body?
I think I disagree with the semantic of what Bobby Marks was saying. I don't think there's a world where he's a top 3 player, but I do agree with the sentiment that I think he's due for a pretty big bounce back season. Just because, if you think about Joel Embiid is gonna be a focal point of the offense, and James Harden is too, but he's not going to get enough shots or enough usage, in theory, where he'd be able to keep up with the likes of a Luka Doncic or a Giannis Antetokounmpo or a Nikola Jokic to even, put up a conversation there. So unless there's an injury, I don't see a world where he can reasonably compete with the other names that will likely be in the MVP case. I also don't think I'm one to subscribe to the idea that it's all narrative based awards. And there's usually a conversation building for months about a guy winning MVP before that guy wins MVP. So unless the whole league is talking about how James Harden is, just defied all odds and the Sixers are the 1 seed, it's hard for me to envision an angle where a guy like Luka Doncic isn't dominating the conversation, or if Embiid comes out and plays incredibly. Again, maybe there isn't some remorse for the last year of MVP voting where it was all Nikola Jokic's Vorp and Schmorp and Dorp. Where they're like, okay, maybe we owe this to Embiid, so maybe if he plays well, he's in the conversation again. I just think that there's enough maybe bad will that Harden has around the league and with people who are in the voting circles to maybe he's just not included in the conversation. And even if he's worthy of it, I think there are people who are probably liked more who because of that will naturally float to the top of that debate.
All right. Last 2 things for you. Very simple stuff here. Austin Krell, paintedlines.com. When it comes to the Sixers team right now, no Kevin Durant trade as the roster is right now. What is the ceiling of this 76ers team? The realistic ceiling for this 76ers squad as assembled right now?
I mean, I can understand a case where they get to the finals and maybe even win a title. Because, I mean, if James Harden is the old James Harden and Joel Embiid is as great as he's been the last 2 years, they've added depth. Why not? I think, the likelihood is probably the conference finals, but I think I would set their ceiling at certainly the finals or title. Gotcha.
They get Kevin Durant. Maxey's in Brooklyn. Tobias Harris is in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant's here in Philadelphia. What's the ceiling for that team?
You might have to start booking a space to broadcast live from the parade.
Perfect way to answer that question. You hit it out of the park. Ladies and gentlemen, for fine takes like that and great NBA coverage, head on over to thepaintedlines.com. Make sure you read my man Austin Krell. That's how you can follow him right there, and also contribute to USA Today, Sports Media Group, and all that fun stuff as well. Austin, great catching up with you, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for breaking it down. Thanks for hustling to uncover some of your own sources when it comes to what could happen with Kevin Durant and Tyrese Maxey and a possible Philadelphia 76ers and Brooklyn Nets swap. Austin, thank you so much, brother.
No problem, Mark. Thanks for
Mally.
having
I see you in the chat, pal. I know they're giving up Tyrese Maxey. Now, wouldn't it be great if they didn't? So if there's like even a smidgen, not even anything that holds water, just a little vapor, okay, in that glass, I'm gonna just explore it because I want to live in that mostly fantasy world, pretty much fantasy world, where the Sixers have both. And the only way that would even be at all vapor possible would be if Kevin Durant was just like, no, I don't really like Boston. I really like Philadelphia, though. I kind of work there as my side hustle, being an owner of the Philadelphia Union. So I want to be closer to the office. I don't want to commute. Trade me to Philadelphia and trade me now. And then the Nets are like, I guess we'll just take whatever Philly gives us. And Philly's like, you can have friend of the Farzy show, George Niang. That's right. You can't even have George Niang. Let me tell you about the great people at Manscaped. We got Brandon Lee Gowton coming up in just a second. Manscaped. Gentlemen, we all strive for gold, don't we? Gold medals, gold watches, gold everything. I love gold. However, there is a certain type of man who goes the extra mile. He walks with confidence. He walks with the confidence of an eagle. And know what he does? He giggles in the face of danger. He's a big, hairless, winning machine. And when he unzips his pants, oh yes, when he unzips his pants, he sees platinum, as in the Platinum Package 4.0 from Manscaped. Yeah, Manscaped sent to the chat. The Platinum Package 4.0 is for men who want to look good everywhere. It includes a lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, and it all comes with skin-safe technology that helps reduce the risk of nicks so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. Plus, the Platinum Package 4.0 also includes the Ultra Premium Body Wash 2-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, crop preserver, anti-chafing ball deodorant, crop reviver ball spray toner, anti-chafing boxers, and the Shed travel bag to help you hold all the goods that you'll be using to take care of your goods with Manscaped. Manscaped is the leader in below-the-waist grooming, and now you can trust them with the whole shebang. Join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com using promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy for 20% off and free shipping with promo code Farzy at manscaped.com. You like CBD? You use CBD? How about Freestone Farms CBD, where you can get 20% off with promo code Farzy at FreestoneFarmCBD.com. The menu is something that you'll have to check out with strains like their insane tropical tasting Bayox that clocks into the chart-topping 24.1%, and Super CBD, which is half Hindu, Kush, and 21%. The genetics of these guys are off the charts. They grow all their premium hemp flower in the Garden State with all organic inputs and IPM, so there's nothing synthetic from farm to jar. And after harvest, they carefully preserve all the plant compounds with a perfect 3-month cure. Just one look or smell will let you know it's CBD done right. And it's the best way for people to take a more natural approach to everything they're putting in their bodies. Go to FreestoneFarmCBD.com. Use promo code Farzy for 20% off at checkout. That's promo code Farzy for 20% off at checkout. How about Blue Chew? BlueChew.com. You know what Blue Chew is by now. It's a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost, and it delivers it straight to your door. Blue Chew's tablets are for men and to help them combat all forms of ED. And again, Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so there's no embarrassing trips to the doctor or pharmacy as Blue Chew ships right to your door. Here is Blue Chew's process, a process you can trust. Sign up at BlueChew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days, and it's all done online. And also, Blue Chew's licensed medical providers will work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? Not a problem here, as Blue Chew's tablets are chewable, so it's not just a clever name. Blue Chew's tablets are made right here in the good old U.S. of A., and they prepare and ship directly to your house, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. Once again, Blue Chew's tablets. Got to try them if you need that problem. If you have that problem, fellas. Blue Chew is the way to go. BlueChew.com. Use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy upon checkout, and just pay $5 shipping. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code Farzy at checkout, and just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. Promo code Farzy to receive your first month free. How about PHL Sports Station, Philadelphia Sports Station, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs? That's PHLSportsNation.com. Without further ado, let's talk a little bit more Eagles football, shall we, with our friend Brandon Lee Gowton. That's right, a two-guest day. It's been a minute since we had a two-guest show. Brandon Lee Gowton joins us from Bleeding Green Nation to talk all things Eagles. triumphant return to the show. And a man, by the way, who has just done his 10th NFL training camp, 10th Eagles training camp, Bleeding Green Nation, the one, the only, the extremely tall and devastatingly handsome, I might add, Brandon Lee Gowton. What's up, Brandon?
Mark, I can't believe it's been 10 years already, but it's a good time. You know, there's been seen a lot of things over just 10 years. And obviously I'm hardly one of the most experienced or longest tenured guys on the beat, but you know, it's an honor. Glad to be here.
Yeah. 10 years regardless, doing anything is an accomplishment. I mean, I'll say that. So let me ask you, what was I know you always ask this of athletes. We always ask this of athletes, but like, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? What was your moment like, oh, wow, okay, this is the real deal. I'm here at training camp. I'm covering the pros. What was that moment for you?
So one of the most memorable things ever from an Eagles training camp didn't have to do so much with the Eagles as much as there was the Riley Cooper thing. I can mention that really quickly.
Oh, that thing?
Yeah, that really quickly was, you know, like something that certainly wasn't normal. But another thing that really stood out was just Tom Brady when he came to Eagles training camp in 2013. And I'm like, whatever, no big deal. It's Tom, so what? It's Tom Brady. I don't care. Whatever. I'm not, you know, bowing down to his greatness or anything, but he was so amazing. Never seen a quarterback in a practice look as dominant as he did. And I hate to admit it, 'cause I'm not a Brady fan by any means, but like he was really freaking good. So it was probably then.
I can remember being in a Gillette Stadium and being at a press conference with him for the first time. And it was probably around that same time. And it was after a Sunday Night Football game. And I just remember thinking, like, that's the greatest ever. That guy right there is the greatest ever. Like, it just kept on repeating in my mind. Yeah, I can identify with we don't root for him by any means, but I hate the term, but GOAT all the way. When you fast forward now to the present day, we have a little bit of I don't want to say a quarterback controversy by any means, because it's not like Gardner Minshew's coming up here to take his spot or anything like that. But when it comes to Jalen Hurts, I look at him as a guy that's in a very similar situation as he was last year in terms of pressure on him for what this year means for the rest of his football life, or at least with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you see it as something similar where he was competing to be the guy for the foreseeable future and is doing that again this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his contract is not up after this season, but do you really want to go into 2023 with like a lame duck quarterback? I think, you know, what's the Eagles' MO? They want to sign guys early. They've done that time and time again. They don't wait. They don't put the franchise tag on players. They want to know their core guys and get them signed to long-term contract extensions, because there's an advantage to doing that. You're beating the market to the punch. Obviously, you're taking on some risk, and maybe you're assuming that player might be a little bit better than they have proven to be. You're putting some faith in them. That's kind of the risk reward and the deal there. But so absolutely, I think there's pressure on Jalen Hurts in that regard. And then just the reality too of, you know, how many more off seasons are the Eagles going to have an extra first round pick like they do next year? So I absolutely think there is that pressure on him. And I have to say, you know, through training camp so far, I don't think he's done anything to like move significantly closer to being that guy. Now, again, it's just camp. There's a whole season to play out, and that'll go a long way in determining his future. But right now, not quite.
Mm-hmm. By the way, we are taping this on Tuesday, just for clarity. But when it comes to Jalen Hurts, then in your 10 years, is there a guy that made you buy into either training camp stats or training camp performance or preseason performance that you thought, oh wow, this guy impact player when the actual season starts, and then it turned out to not really go that way?
Well, the value of training camp, is interesting to talk about. I do remember Carson Wentz, and I don't think this is just revisionist history. Like, he looked on fire in that 2017 training camp. That's not to say he was perfect. I'm sure there could have been a bad practice or two in there, some inconsistency, but more often than not, it was like, wow, this guy is clearly making a big jump from year one to year two. And by contrast, I remember Carson Wentz ahead of 2020 dealing with a lot of accuracy issues, and I didn't fully know what to make of it at the time. I'm like, maybe this doesn't mean a whole lot, but sure enough, it did. And to this day, now he's with the Commanders, we're still hearing about him having accuracy issues in training camp. So I absolutely think there's meaning to it. You know, I think Nick Foles has brought up in his example, maybe not the best barometer of a guy, how he performs in training camp, how he performs in the games. But also Nick Foles, to me, is a very anomalous player who has obviously has high highs and low lows. So I think there's value in it. And again, Hurts has not been in a spot where I think he's had way more good days than bad days. So, you know, I don't think that's what you want to see.
No, 1,000% with you there. This week we get the horrible news. Well, not horrible news, but the news about Jason Kelce and the fact that he's going to be missing some time. I don't think he'll miss the first week of the season. He's got a history of obviously fighting through a lot throughout his career. What are you making of the news of Jason Kelce, and what are the Eagles going to do without him for the next couple weeks?
With any kind of injury like this, any kind of situation where the team is like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. He's getting surgery, but it's not that big of a deal. And you have to have some level of skepticism. You can't just be like, well, the team is definitely telling the truth. And not that I'm saying the Eagles are liars. I'm just saying across the board, when you see injuries like these in sports, the team might kind of be a little bit generous in terms of like the time they're not going to miss. And sometimes it's worse than they make it out to be. So that's always on your radar. It does sound like, based on all the reports, that he won't miss time, which is really good. But I mean, it's not great necessarily that he could be entering the season, coming off of some lack of conditioning and obviously just not having the full gelling and like getting all the reps he normally would with Jalen Hurts. Is it the biggest deal in the world? I don't think so. But also, I can't help but wonder, okay, is this issue going to go away once he has this procedure? And is it going to just be in his past? Or is this something that might flare up again? And if that's the case, I know Cam Jurgens is here, and I think he's had a good training camp and, could potentially be a nice future starter for the Eagles and might be able to be a decent fill-in for this year. But you're talking about a player in Jason Kelce, who is a leader of the team, a team captain, and a 4-time All-Pro in the last 5 years versus a rookie who doesn't have, a rapport with the starting quarterback the way that Kelce does, obviously, with Jalen Hurts. So not pressing the panic button, but also a little bit more concerning than 0%.
Brandon, real quick, I just want to show this video of Cam Jurgens getting owned by Jordan Davis. What'd you make of that power?
So I think, offensive line Twitter ran away with that and was like, well, actually, it wasn't even that bad of a rep because, he kept him in front of him and everything. And it's a one-on-one drill. And obviously defensive linemen are going to have more of an advantage in there because there's no actual quarterback who can get the ball out really quick. But I do think that speaks to Jordan Davis's power. I mean, he's huge, and not only huge in like, I like to make the distinction. He's not like fat. I think a lot of people, you think of a big guy, like, big gut or like, really like stocky. He looks pretty sleek as much as like a guy who is 6'6", 330 pounds can be. Very athletic, and that shouldn't be surprising. He obviously tested incredibly at the combine. So I think, again, Jordan Davis has done some really nice things. You're seeing the power that he has. Not only does he have the ability to clog up the run, but he can get in the backfield too. He can kind of push the pocket and rush the passer, which is everyone was concerned about with him. But I think Jurgens on the whole too has done a lot of good things. There've been reps where he's held up against Jordan Davis. So I think the fact that those guys are having good battles is a good thing all around.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. We've heard a lot about A.J. Brown. We've heard about Jordan Davis. We've heard a little bit about Nakobe Dean. But is there a guy that's kind of off the radar that has grabbed your attention through nine training camp sessions to this point?
9 training camp sessions, almost just over halfway. They're going to have 16 total, including the 4 joint training camp practices, both against the Browns, which are next week, and then the Dolphins after that. I would say Nakobe Dean has not really stood out at all, which is not like the end of the world because he's a rookie. But I just want one flash from him, and we haven't seen that. And meanwhile, we've seen TJ Edwards have a really good summer. Davion Taylor, who's kind of been a forgotten guy here, has made plays. Kaiser White, who the Eagles signed in free agency, he's made some good plays as well. And then even Sean Bradley, I think he's had an interception or 2 in training camp. So there's at least 4 linebackers who have shined ahead of Nakobe Dean in training camp. So I'm not pressing the panic button him on any means either, but I just think, for people expecting big things out of Nakobe Dean in year 1, maybe pump the brakes on that a little bit. And that doesn't mean he can't have a good career. It just means I don't know how much he's going to be a day 1 contributor. So I would definitely pump the brakes on that. In terms of other guys who have stood out, I kind of look at the guys who are on the back of the roster fighting for a spot, especially when it comes to the return game. I mean, Jason Huntley, he's my guy. I've been on the Jason Huntley train for a while now. It's kind of a bit I put out there, but also like he's good when he looks explosive when he has the ball on offense. He's their best kick returning option. When was the last time the Eagles had a good kick returner? Also, when was the last time the Eagles had a good punt returner? It's really, Darren Sproles, but that's been a while now. And Britton Covey is kind of a guy who Nick Sirianni was praising and I think could potentially make the roster as a 6th receiver. Maybe he's the 5th guy if they are able to trade Jalen Reagor. So I'm looking at those return spots as the guys kind of both that we've seen throughout camp who have showed potential, but also going to be wanting to watch in the preseason games.
I went over it the other day, the Eagles' unofficial, super unofficial, made by the PR staff depth chart, and I saw Jalen Reagor as the kick and punt returner. And I was like, okay, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they're going to fight for the idea of holding on to a first-round pick, I don't mind them in that spot as much.
Yeah, I mean, I would like the Eagles to move on from Jalen Reagor if they could. I think it's honestly in the best interest of everyone involved. I think Jalen Reagor could afford a fresh start. And I don't think he's had, let me say, I think he's actually had the best camp. That's also a very low bar because he's had some bad camps, or at least been invisible in camp his first couple of years here. But he's made some good plays. There have been also a number of plays still where the ball is being thrown towards him and it's an interception or a pass breakup, and I don't think that's totally unrelated. So by no means do I think he like totally turned the corner and now you have to keep him around. I think it's a situation where the Eagles are kind of hoping that, okay, there's some better press out about him now. Hopefully maybe we can trade him. We can get off of some of that money we owe him, get something back in return, and then open that roster spot up for someone maybe like a Britton Covey.
Gotcha. When it comes to this receiving core with A.J. Brown, how much does it elevate the rest of this offense when you already have weapons like Dallas Goedert, you already have Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, and Kenny Gainwell in the backfield? How much does it elevate having a talent like that?
I mean, A.J. Brown is going to lead this team in targets. It's no secret. Jalen Hurts loves throwing the ball his way, and can't blame him because he's a really good player who can win in a number of different ways. He had that big play at the link that everyone saw, able to fight for the ball, even though it wasn't, I don't think it was a bad pass, but it wasn't necessarily a perfect pass. He was able to go up and make a play on that. Been a real big weapon on slant routes in practice, and you can just see, it's obviously they're not doing live tackling in practice, but still for him to be able to get the ball in the middle of the field and just be able to take off running and be able to fight through contact like he can, like you see he can. I mean, he's going to make a big difference for this offense, I feel like, just in terms, too, of thinking about all the attention that is going to go his way. That should, in theory, open up more targets and more opportunity for Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert in the right situation. So it's a huge deal.
What are you making of Miles Sanders? There's a lot of I hate to use the word, but it's like there's controversy surrounding him going into this year. What do you think comes out of it for Miles Sanders after this season? Really big year for him in terms of, his contract is up after this season. And I don't know that the Eagles are really looking to invest big resources into a running back. That's not how they operate, at least in terms of money. Obviously, they spent a second-round pick on Sanders. But I think he's had a really good camp in terms of a runner. He clearly looks way more explosive than any other running back on the team, which shouldn't be a surprise. But, for drills where the defense can actually tackle him and the running backs are always going to, look decent because they can't get stopped. He looks really good. Still don't think he's earned that trust as a pass catcher, which is a problem, and impacts his playing time overall. The big question about Miles Sanders isn't like, is he talented? He clearly is. That's not up for debate. The question is, can he be a volume runner? Because, these guys at the top of the league at that position, like Derrick Henry, Zeke, whoever you want to name, they get the volume too. And part of that is because they can be counted. Well, part of it is they're so special as running backs, but also because you don't want to take them off the field. And because Sanders kind of has some question marks there from what he can contribute as a pass catcher, that's going to lead to Kenny Gainwell and maybe Jason Huntley or Boston Scott, whoever, getting, sharing the playing time to some extent. I still think Sanders is clearly, the top guy there, but is he going to be a 20 carry a game guy ever? I think he can kind of make his case for that if he can, catch the ball and be really productive and everything and stay healthy. But that much he has to answer still. This is the big question that everyone's going to be looking for after this season. And it really has to do all about the quarterback and Jalen Hurts. Do you think he will get another year, at least one more year, being the Eagles starting quarterback, meaning they will most likely sign him to a multi-year deal if that's the case? Do you think he will earn another contract with the Philadelphia Eagles when it's all said and done and all that's been added and all the hard work he's put in and all that? Do you think he will be good enough, bottom line, to play again for the Eagles after this season? I don't think so. I think it's a really high bar that the Eagles will hold him to. Look, the Eagles, they want to pass the ball. It's not a secret. And I think Jalen Hurts brings a lot of positive things to the table, this running ability. I think he's improved in some regards as a passer in terms of he's working the middle of the field more than he did last year in camp. A.J. Brown's helping a lot with that. But you're not seeing a night and day difference from this player. You're not seeing oh, yeah, this is the guy we definitely want to give all this money to. And by the way, once you do give him that money, this stacked roster that everyone likes to talk about, that is a really good support system around him, you're not able to retain that as easily because you're using those resources that you're building up the roster to instead spend on the quarterback. So I just don't think he's that kind of player who is a win because of quarterback as much as he's kind of a win with player who's along for the ride and doesn't mess things up. And there's value in that in terms of, you can be a playoff team like the Eagles were last year. But at some point,
you want the ceiling to be more than just a playoff team, and you want to be actually able to compete with the big boys for the championship. I was just talking about Tom Brady at the top of this segment. Like you need a guy who's going to be able to compete with the elite quarterbacks. And I don't think we've seen anything from Jalen Hurts thus far that indicates he can.
Here's my thing. I think he does earn that deal. And just to be full disclosure here, it's hard for me to bet against the guy with a great work ethic, and hard to bet against the guy that's going to have those weapons around him in year 2 as a starter. That's where I'm at with Jalen Hurts. 2 quick ones for you. Overall expectations for this Eagles team. We haven't even played a preseason game yet. What's your somewhat early prediction for this season for Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, their schedule is so easy. And, that sometimes that only means so much, because if you're not any good, then okay, it doesn't matter if you have a great schedule or easy schedule. But I think from what we saw last year, for all the criticism that's out there, and I think rightfully so to this point, about Jonathan Gannon, can he actually not get destroyed by a good quarterback? Because that happened every time they played a good quarterback basically last year. And he took care of the not good ones. And they have a lot of not good ones on the schedule this year. So I think the defense is going to be able to hold up, especially because they've added some pieces. They're getting Brandon Graham back, who has looked great in training camp, maybe like better than he ever has. He's looked really good. So, and I think the offense, while they haven't looked good in camp, I think there's a floor there because of Jalen Hurts' rushing ability, because of A.J. Brown and the playmakers that they have here in the running game. I think there's certainly a floor with this team that I believe in, and that's why I think I would, not to do whatever you want with your money, but I like the over. I think the over, I feel decent about that. But I question the ceiling. That's what it comes down to. And I just don't know if this team really has what it takes to go on a deep playoff run if they don't have a high volume, elite kind of, or at least very good passing offense. And they have not had that yet with Hurts. And I've not seen anything to make me believe that's going to change in a big way.
Okay, fair enough. To switch subject here, because I know you're a man for all seasons, particularly basketball. And again, we're taping this on Tuesday night. And we just recently learned about Ben Simmons and allegedly leaving a chat with the Brooklyn Nets. Are you enjoying laughing at the Brooklyn Nets as much as I am? Am I just being a selfish jerk? Like, what are you making of what we have learned this week?
I was never the biggest Ben, not to say I was like right all along or anything, but like right. I was never the biggest Ben Simmons guy. I can genuinely say that. I was never the biggest Ben Simmons guy. And all this is just very unsurprising to me. I'm like, yep. It's kind of validating to see like people coming around and, oh yeah, like this guy is not the guy.
Yeah, it certainly seems like. And could we have a better replacement for him than Tyrese Maxey, who seems to be the polar opposite of him? Tyrese Maxey is like barely real in terms of like he's just like everything you want him to be. How the Sixers got him is incredible with the Mike Muscala like hitting a shot in the in Disneyland, like it's just, or Disney World. It's just so crazy. He's unreal. He's great. I don't know, like he's up there in Philadelphia sports history, like with athletes who like are infallible, like that everyone loves, that no one, like even some of the most popular athletes, you can easily find like detractors for them. But I don't think I don't know if there's a single Tyrese Maxey detractor out there. I don't think I've ever used this phrase for any athlete ever. He's a sweetheart. He's a damn sweetheart is what he is. No, I couldn't agree more with you on Maxey and your Ben Simmons takes as well. Brandon Lee Gowton, Bleeding Green Nation, congratulations, 10 years. Training camp for you, my friend. I couldn't be happier for you, man. It's I'm sure it's been a fun ride for you. Thanks for joining us on the show today, man. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
The great Brandon Lee Gowton joining us. That was a good time. Catching up with Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. It was a good time to both do the interview and then also read our chat check today. I gave a little preview. Before we jumped into it. And we got our morning rush coming up as well. We're going to get to it all on an extended version, a 2-guest version of the Farzy Show. Let's jump into the chat check right now, see what all you wonderful people have been up to this entire morning. So let's get that going. Jump in and let's see who starts us off today. Oh, can I get rid of this? There we go. I'm learning things. Dan Schwartz, good morning. Mullet, good morning. Kevin, good morning. Mullet, you're right. One another day of painting over graffiti for the city. If you're lucky, you'll win that one day. Oh, congratulations, Dan. Thank you. Dan cleans up graffiti in the city. Dan is doing God's work. Darian, hello. April, Mally, hello again. Jim, right out of the gate. Keith Hernandez can shove it. Yes, he can. Jim Gardner took him to task. April, I did see that. That was great. Dan Schwartz, like eating fruit. Yes, eggplant is technically a fruit. I'm sorry, what? Keith Hernandez, this is from Alex Young. Keith Hernandez can go play with his turtle and learn how to hula hoop again since he forgot it's not 1996. Well played, Alex. Well played. Like how Dink and Dunk is slowly taking over all sports. Oddly, basketball, not yet. Not yet. That's true. The irony there, Mullet. Darian, hello. Refund HD. What's going on? Sixers should try to pull KD trade off. Gotta maximize Joel's window now. See, that's what it all comes down to. It's like, I don't have, like, in my gut tell you, I always say, I gotta listen to your gut. Well, both my mind and my gut are morons. So, but my gut tells me, like, this Kevin Durant trade does not mean a championship. And I know that yes, contenders, expectations, praise from around the league and hype, yes, it would make them favorites to win the championship. But, like, it just doesn't feel right. There's something about it that just does not rub me the right way. But I know that if it gets presented to the Sixers brass, Tyrese Maxey's not going to stand in the way of a trade for Kevin Durant. I don't feel great about it. I don't want to lose Tyrese Maxey, but that does make them favorites to win the championship. I don't feel great about it. My gut is like, you should not do this deal. Do not do this deal. But it's like, how do I look Daryl Morey in the eye and be like, yeah, don't do this deal? like that's the way I always think of it. Like, if I'm proposing something, I always want to pretend like I'm looking at the general manager and be like, yes, do this deal, or no, don't do this deal. Like the Logan O'Hoppe trade that I'll go back to with Brandon Marsh. I want to look at David Dombrowski and be like, well, that's it? Like, I got nothing against Brandon Marsh. And look, he's been hitting for the Phillies. I think I've said it every show. I had a big hit last night. And he can play a hell of a defensive center field. But, like, that's it? That's all you got back for Logan O'Hoppe? Like, I understand you traded a guy that you're not going to see here for 3 years for a guy that you hope is the center fielder of the future. But, like, that's it. You're going to package him and get somebody up. All right, whatever. But that's how they go. B-ball Paul for Durant. Got to think about it. Nice, Dan. Sean Gillespie, what's up, Sean? Maxey will be the #1 star in Brooklyn and will shine, and I will be here, and I will still be a fan. Look, Maxey Maxey would get a standing ovation his first return to Philadelphia if this deal happens. No question about that. Popeye the Sailor Man, in order to do that trade, KD has to demand a trade exclusively to the Sixers, otherwise it will never happen. Look, I think KD just wants to get out of there. And I think the ownership's going to dig in and be like, yes, we are absolutely committed to Steve Nash and Sean Marks. And if that's the case, then I think KD's going to have to choose between the Celtics and the Sixers. Mullet pointing out KD's chicken legs. Popeye, right on, Mullet. Absolutely. Sean Gillespie. Just hope Brooklyn doesn't force Kyrie to go with KD. Ugh. This true, Popeye? He better delivery? What's happening? I don't know. Paul Gaston. What's up, Paul? Sean, hello again. Popeye, 57% will trade Maxey. Love the kid, but KD is the difference maker for a championship in Philly. I agree. Mark, if you think the Nets aren't going to take Maxey, that Hindu Kush must be better than I thought. They are taking Maxey. If this trade happens, they are taking Maxey. But if there's a little smidgen, then I'm going to hold out hope for that. Paul Gaston, what's happening? Popeye, Mally, Vape Ross Vape. It's my favorite children's book, other than the Mouse Who Played Football by Brian Westbrook and Leslie Van Arsdale. Someone say Vapor? I did say Vapor. You got me. Minivan is off the table, says Mullet. I wouldn't want to trade him. Great guest of the show. April, what WTF is this read? Yeah, I know, right? That was the Manscaped. I know why Mark is talking about me. Are you talking about the Blue Chew again? April, it sounds like the beginning of a Penthouse letter. So me and my friends just really wanted some pizza. And wouldn't you know, 3 female pizza delivery people showed up at the door. Anyway. Can we get traded to a Manscaped? We'll get Trey back on and he'll do a Manscaped read for us, I'm sure. Jim Grassbeater, what's going on? Is Brandon taller than PJ? April asked that question. So for those that might be just joining the show, PJ, producer Jim Hyden does a wonderful job. He is 7'7", and Brandon Lee Gowton is also 7'7". So yeah, I think they're the same height. But here's the deal: PJ, I just saw him recently. I think he's going through a bit of a growth spurt, so he might be 8'1" by now. Mullet, we're all having fun. I got to tell one of my favorite jokes. That's a Bob Saget joke, by the way. I heard that joke. Bob Saget tell that joke. You have to look in the chat to know, folks. You got to look in the chat. Ray Fitzgerald, you get Durant now. The window is 1 year. You have two players, 34 years of age, and I don't know if you have enough balls out there to get enough shots for everybody. Ray, I agree. I think the window might be 2 years because Joel Embiid is still going to be the anchor of this team. But yeah, see, the thing that hurts so much about Maxey is that he's young. So, and you're trading for them what would be a really old team. So it's like a short 2-year window to win. And then with Maxey, you would have a longer sustained period of at least having one guy that you know can be a big piece of a championship team. And that's going to be without Joel Embiid. I think here's what I think ends up happening. Durant is not a Sixer. Durant's not a Sixer. Sixers still are a pretty damn good basketball team that I think will still compete for at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Ray Fitzgerald, wouldn't be surprised if Simmons holds out with a fake injury because he doesn't want to be there. Yeah, I wouldn't. It's a toxic environment, Ray. April says she'll be shocked if Ben Simmons plays. I agree. All right, Dan, I got you. Don't know where this show would be if Mark didn't have some sense of decorum. And Kuth censoring the chat the best he can. Kudos, sir. I thank you. Kuth is a big word in my in-laws' house. Have some house. In my in-laws' house. Have some Kuth. Yeah. I hope Brandon is wrong on Hurts, but he is speaking uncomfortable truths. I agree. No, Sean, look at all things we have to acknowledge. He makes great points. I just tend not to doubt Howie Roseman when it comes to all things salary cap. Thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate that. Let's move in our morning rush. Just one thing with the morning rush today. Phillies back at it today against the Marlins. What did I say? What did I say when they wrapped up the series against the Washington Nationals? You keep the brooms out, baby. You keep the brooms out. And that's what the Phillies are doing. They're keeping the brooms out. They have an opportunity to sweep the Miami Marlins tonight. Or excuse me, this afternoon, 1:05 start time. Kyle Gibson gets the start for the Phillies. We'll see what he can do tonight as he's been not too bad. Not too bad. Not too bad this year at all. 1:05 start time today. Phillies 62-48. Marlins now 49-61. Almost reverse records. He'll go against Edward Cabrera. Kyle Gibson is 7-4 on the season with a 4.36 ERA. Cabrera will just be making his 5th start of the season. He's got a 2.61 ERA. Came off of, I believe it was 5 shutout innings in his previous start. 5 shutout innings in his previous start. Actually, only allowing 3 walks, did not issue a hit, and it was a 2-1 loss to the Chicago Cubs. Before that, though, he went 3 2/3, allowing 5 runs. That was the only start in his last 4 that he got roughed up in. Everything else has been pretty damn good. So pretty good right-handed pitcher will be on the hill for the Marlins tonight. Hopefully the Phillies will get to him early. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers right here at the Steven Singer Studios. Jim Hyder produced the program, did a wonderful job. This is a Buzz Sports Entertainment production. My name is Mark Farzetta. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.